Hey, we are running a little bit late today. Do-do-do. Okay, there she is. We no tech issues. There she is. Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, just starting my morning.
All good. Well, I'm glad we're able to finally do this. I'm super excited about featuring you.
Yeah, thanks for being
Excuse me.
flexible and patient.
Oh, no worries. So I know we might have to breeze through this, but it's okay if we run a little bit over. Anyways, I'm super excited about this series, excuse me. And I'm live here in the UK right now, and I'm live with Erica from sunny California. Super jealous because it's very winter here. But I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, or if you're catching the replay, for joining me for another one of these boss interviews. And I'm really excited about featuring Erica. She's one of my beautiful mastermind sisters, and I'd first love to introduce you all to her. So after teaching at at-risk communities, including the one where she grew up in for 5 years, balancing lesson plans, volunteering, loved ones, laundry, and almost every other activity under the sun, Erica so decided enough was enough. She began branching out as a happiness coach, empowering people to serve others, to take control of their time and live a life that they love. In addition to serving her clients, she also offers free programming for youth throughout the Wave Learning Festival, so they are equipped with healthy interpersonal skills that aren't taught in school. Before starting her own business, Erica worked with youth in the classroom, on the trail, and also in the trees. As a teacher, she was haunted by the endless to-do lists at home and school. Now she has a system to overcome overwhelm. She challenges her clients to accept things that are beyond their control while holding them accountable to take action towards their dreams. So thank you so much for being here on this Q&A today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Monique.
Yay, awesome. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started?
Yeah, so it's a lot of it is wrapped up in there, but it really started with teaching. So when I was in college, I knew I studied environmental science, and I really wanted the public to be aware of all these environmental issues and to take action to help make the world a better place, essentially. And in learning, I found out that a lot of the things that were problems were uh, more about like public education, because people weren't aware, they didn't know, or they didn't um, have the education to understand what was going on, right? And so that's when I decided I wanted to get into the classroom and work with students so that I could teach them and their families how to be better stewards of the environment. And so throughout that process, I also learned that there's a lot of other things going on besides the environment. And I came to really love my students and take care of them, definitely beyond my content. And it honestly became this issue where I started burning myself out because I cared for them too much and I didn't know when to stop. Like I would go home and I couldn't sleep because I knew all the issues that they were having about not being fed and issues at home with their families and all these kinds of things. So I realized I needed to take care of myself and distance myself a little bit from my students, but I still wanted to help. And so that's kind of like where Big and Branching Out came from, is I want to help people more intimately than just like the hour or two that I see students in the classroom, but I also want to be able to provide curriculum for students eventually. That's where my Wave Learning Festival content comes from, is I'm still having contact with students, but not so intimately that I'm getting burnt out by it.
Yeah.
And so I guess the piece there is I'm coaching because I want to work with people that have the capacity to change, because with kids it's hard, they can only do so much, right, to change their situation. And so now I'm working with adults to make sure if they're ready to do the work, I'm there to help them.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That's so inspiring. What would you say is your favorite part about the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is another big thing, is listening. That's my favorite part. I just love hearing my clients' stories and like what they're going through, whether that's a win, whether that's a struggle, whether that's just like a revelation. Like I love it. It's very funny because it's like the same teachable moments in the classroom when kids put things together. Like we're
Yeah,
all just really mature kids or not, like
totally.
experienced kids. Right. And so I love giving my clients the space to make those explorations and have that journey on diving deep into like where they've come from and where they've been and where they want to go. Because I think a lot of times we don't take enough time to reflect.
No, it's so true. I feel like everybody gets too caught up in the hustle
Yeah.
of everything. Well, so for today's topic, happiness and work-life balance, I'm super excited to dive into this a little bit more. Do you believe there is such thing as work-life balance, or what is it to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's definitely difficult, but it is possible. And
Mhm.
I like to compare it to the concept of riding a bike, right? The balance is riding the bike. You can't be constantly balanced on those two wheels for your entire life. Sometimes you need to get off the bike, get a flat, I mean, fix your flat tire, eat, right? You can eat while you're driving, right? Or on your bike, but it's not as good. Sometimes
Yeah.
you want to like sit down and enjoy that meal, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes we can also get really blindsided in that we're so focused on moving forward that we forget where we're actually going, right? Like don't hit that car, don't hit that tree, but like why are you doing that in the first place? So I really like this bike analogy because it makes it so like tangible, right? Because when you're riding your bike, you want to make sure you have the destination in mind, that you have um, air in your tires, and that your like thing isn't misaligned.
Yeah, totally. No, thank you for sharing that. I think that's such a great perspective shift. And remind me again, how long have you been, or how long has Begin Branching Out been around for?
Yeah, it's been a year. So I started in October 2019, and here I am a year and a month later.
Very good. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry, I like a tickle in my throat.
Oh, it's the
Um,
worst.
what would you say are your top three tips to thrive, be happy, and have balance?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an interesting question. It's really hard. The biggest one I think is just letting it all out. Like so
Mm.
often we have a tendency to hold on to things or not let it out because we're afraid of what people are going to say or what they're going to do or what they're going to think of us. But at the end of the day, like you need to find that safe space and just let it all out so you recognize and can like see where you are and take inventory appropriately. After that, it's all out on the table. Like literally I do this and I have like papers everywhere or like my notes just exploding. But
Yeah.
once you have everything out and you can kind of sort through and see where everything is, it really helps to go ahead and then prioritize it. Okay, what needs to be done first and how can you situate those other things so that they get done when they need to get done. And then
Mhm.
after all of that, doing just one thing at a time. Because it's so tempting when you have a million things to do all million things at the same time. But then it's all done very poorly and you can't take pride in it, right? You want to make sure when you're doing something, you give it 110%. Because I know a lot of my clients, at least, are always like, I want to give it my all plus a little bit more. But you can't do that when you have so many different distractions.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it might be hard to like detach from that too, because like I always call myself a recovering perfectionist because I have a hard time letting go of things.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you
I
feel
know
like that
what you
comes
mean.
with time and with practice, or how do you think that comes upon for people?
Yeah, and this is again where a lot of my teaching expertise and teaching experience comes in is in
Mhm.
the classroom we use scaffolds all the time. And you can think of like scaffolding on a building, right? You can't build a building without scaffolding, right? You
Yeah.
need that structure to build it up there. And then after it's all built and in place and steady, then you remove the scaffolding, right?
Mhm.
And so that's when we're using those tools like meditation or journaling or reflecting in other ways beyond those, that you're able to really dive deep and see where you're at and then see how to build that building, right? And then you can take away the scaffold and you can use it in your own way and be on your own.
Yeah, I love that you have all these analogies for it. It makes it so good.
I'm so visual. Like if I can't see it, I'm
Yes,
like, what?
same. Okay, so I know right now it's pretty difficult with like uncertain times. Like here in the UK, we're back in a second lockdown as of last Thursday. So I don't know. And I feel like, the US is like right behind it with another lockdown too, another full lockdown. And so more and more of us are working from home. So, with this coming up, what is your advice around work-life balance when you can't really separate your work from home because you're like, I find right now, like even though we're working from home, I'm working more because
Yeah.
it's no separation.
Yeah. I've been talking to a lot of people and they're just working because they're like, oh, I'm already at home or my desk anyway. So like, why not just keep getting it done so I don't have to do it tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then it just keeps piling up.
Yeah.
So what I found has been super duper helpful is boundaries. And that might sound so simple, but like that's essentially what your workplace was before, right? You used to go to the office or wherever, right? And that would be your workspace. And then when you came home, hopefully you were able to unplug. I know I was definitely guilty. I always brought work home and I didn't sleep and all that. And so just learning from that is creating those own boundaries for yourself. And it's a lot harder because you're the one implementing them, right? There's not someone asking like, oh, you're late, you're beyond the clock, whatever, right? And so when I'm saying boundaries, I mean time and space,
Mm,
right? So you want to pick what are your work hours? just like you would when you're going into the office or whatever, right? So my work hours, I say I'm on from 10 to 6, which is wild, a little late.
No, no worries. It's all
Right?
good.
And so I know I love waking up early, but my morning is also my super valuable like focus time, right? And so I protect that because I want to be able to like embrace my creativity, not feel rushed, not feel stressed when I'm waking up, because that's when I'm most energized. And so I can get things done, but I don't want to feel the pressure of doing them, right? And so then after 5, that's my time to chill. That's when I eat dinner. That's when I'm playing with my dog. That's when I'm watching Netflix, playing video games, all the like things children do, which I love. And I feel like people are so worried about being immature, but it's just you're like curiosity and creativity. Like there's nothing to be ashamed of there. And like I think a lot of times we don't get in touch with our like inner child enough, and that makes us feel old, right? No one wants to feel old. You want to have a playful spirit and do the things you love, right? And so like I think that's one of my big things is I want to empower people to recognize that you don't have to do anything. Like you do things because you decided to do them, or you think someone's forcing you to, right?
Yeah,
so
no, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I thank you for being on here early today too. So
Yeah, no worries.
no, totally. Well, and I love what you said too about, like, so the two things like time boundaries and, space boundaries, because I feel like even environmental, you can just like make that shift, and just have that boundary there, a physical boundary.
And then, like the physical thing too, like with space, I think a lot of times what people are doing is they're also working on their couch or they're working in their bed, right? And what happens is you end up changing your association with that space, right? I'm sure I know a lot of people are having a hard time sleeping right now because they're working in bed or because they're working on the couch. So then their mind is thinking, oh, I'm still working, even though you're trying to like watch Netflix and chill. Like you can't do that. You have to be disciplined. Okay, this is my workspace. And sometimes maybe you might switch it up and go to a different spot, but don't put it in a relaxed spot. So that's, on the space boundary.
Thank you for sharing that. What are your thoughts about overcoming overwhelm, especially, with the end of the year coming up? I know like big goals that, everybody has big goals, big targets. Like, how do we deal with all the things? What's your advice there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest thing, like I've mentioned before, is the value of reflection, right? And going back to the bike analogy, I kind of touched on it before, but we're so busy moving, pedaling forward on that bike, getting up that hill, that we don't take the time to realize that we have a blister or we have like it's misaligned, right? And so it's so painful. Like, I'm just gonna push through it. I can do it. If you just stop, put a freaking band-aid on it, you're gonna be much better. Right? And just kind of pause to reflect and see where you are so that you can move forward in a more efficient way. I think a lot of times people feel guilty for stopping and pausing to think about what's going on or just to take care of themselves and rest. But when you're trying to push yourself into the second, third hour or whatever your like limit is, it's way less productive. And so by taking a 5, 10, even an hour break, sometimes that can boost your productivity and creativity like through the roof. And so when you jump back in, you get the same work done that you would have done in 2 hours in like 30 minutes.
No, that is gold right there. I hope all of you tuning in, or if you're catching the replay, take notes on that and actually implement this, because that's so true. Like you have to like, essentially like go back to go forward, you have to do that. And it's important because it's like, it's not all about the hustle. So being a happiness coach, what is your advice on getting out of your own way to be more happy?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the biggest thing that's really, really helpful is just being able to recognize like where you're at and embrace it. Because I think a lot of times, again, people have that resistance. They're like, no, I'm not like tired, or no, I don't have to like take a break, or no, I don't have to rest. Like, yeah, you do. You can't like just keep going. Just like if your car stopped going, you have to go get fuel, right? Just like your body would have to get fuel if you were biking, right? You can't push yourself if you haven't stopped to refuel, right? Your phone, all of these things, they need fuel. And it's just like being honest with yourself and recognizing that. I think a lot of times we have that resistance because we think we're supposed to be doing something different than we are.
No, that's so true. Was it challenging for you when you had to make that transition from when you were teaching and now moving into your own business?
Absolutely. And it's something I learned towards the end of my teaching when I realized I was going to leave, was sometimes enough is enough. Always enough is enough. Like we always, especially our recovering perfectionists, like I'm definitely guilty of that too. where you feel like you have to do everything to the T, and you spend an extra 2 hours on the presentation because you want to make sure all the fonts align and like everything's perfect, right? When you could have
Exactly.
spent 1 hour doing that and like 1 hour playing your favorite game, right?
Mhm. No, that's awesome. It's like so accurate when you just called that out.
I'm guilty of it too.
Yes. Hey, Saprit. Hey, Tina. Thanks so much for joining in. So last question, I always love to end these Q&As with action steps. What is the one action step you would recommend to these young professionals or these small business owners to do today as it relates to, getting closer to that work-life balance?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is take the time to write it down. And when I say that, like specifically right now with COVID, writing down the time and space boundaries that you want, it takes time. It's challenging to make transitions, but recognize what the boundaries are you want and why you want them so that you're motivated to do it, and make sure you communicate, because I feel like a lot of times people are like, I'm going to do this, and then they keep making exceptions because they're like, oh, it's my friend or my boss asked me to do this. But like within reason, there's certain boundaries you can establish and protect. So like recognize what they are, make sure they're realistic, and then why you need them.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on here today and just dropping so much value and so much wisdom. Like, this has been so good. I'm glad we were finally able to get to do this. So for people with more questions or wanting to learn more about how to work with you, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Instagram, I'm at Begin Branching Out. My email is Erika, Erika, at beginbranchingout.com. I also have a fun event tonight called Thankful Through the Holidays, How to Be Grateful When Things Aren't Great. And that's at 5:30 p.m. PST. And the link for that is in my bio.
Awesome. Yay. So I'll definitely drop that here in the caption right after this. Well, excellent. Thank you so much again, everyone, for tuning in or catching the replay. As always, let me know your thoughts and feedback, or if you'd like me to have Erika on again sometime. Any final thoughts from you, Erika?
I just want to thank you so much for making this space, Monique. I love having these discussions, and it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you. Well, thanks so much again. And yeah, let's definitely touch base again soon, because I know that you've dropped so many gold nuggets in here, so I'm probably going to go back and watch this too. So
Oh yeah, got you.
sounds good. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks. You
Bye,
too. See
everyone.
ya.
Bye.